Now with the latest revamp of the Olds, we are going all in to pull out as much performance as possible. Now there's kind of commonly seen areas of improvement like the drivetrain, suspension, braking, things that people typically upgrade when they're pursuing performance. But there's also some overlooked areas, namely the electronic systems and electronic controls that can give you a lot of benefit, but people don't necessarily seem to see those as big areas of improvements when they're building a race car. Now, with the changes we're making, the dual clutch and some other exciting changes that we haven't talked about yet, but we will soon, we're going to have more sensors and electronics on this car than ever before, and it's really important for us to take full advantage of that. Now, obviously you want everything to integrate and communicate for the sake of something like data logging so we can review everything that the car is doing and what we're doing as drivers. But there's also a lot of benefit to having those sensors and everything communicate together so that way you can use logic to control it, and then that kind of opens up a lot of doors of possibility for what you can do with the car. You know, if we can take a wheel speed sensor and then use that to trigger a different output, well really the sky's the limit with what you can do. Now, typically that's been done in the past with things like relays, fuse circuits, a lot of electromechanical systems, but that adds a lot of parts and complexity and labor to the car to install this stuff. Now, the PDM technology that's really blown up over the last few years has created a lot of flexibility with what you can do with the car, and we really see that as the future of race car wiring. It is pretty game-changing with what you can do as far as the electronics on your race car, so let's talk about it. So the first question you're probably asking is, what the heck's a PDM? Well, PDM is an acronym for Power Distribution Module, and the way I like to look at it is basically that it's the world's smartest fuse block. This takes the place of pretty much any fuse circuit or any relay, things like that, and gets rid of all of the electromechanical systems and replaces it with solid state control. And some of you may understand what I just said, and other of you are probably thinking, oh, what does that even mean? I don't understand. Well, basically, what this does is you run all your wiring and circuits to it, so things like lights, turn signals, your fans, fuel pumps, things like that, and it controls it via programming. So instead of having something like a 20 amp fuse or maybe I don't know, 40 amp relay to control a fan or something, you go in here and then you define in a program what that circuit is. So you tell it, there's some limitations. Now there's certain high amp circuits, so you are restricted somewhat with your number of inputs and outputs based off amperage, but you go into the program, you tell it this is a 40 amp circuit, turn on under this condition, turn off under this condition, and that is an incredibly powerful thing. So we're getting rid of all the fuses and relays off the car, and this is going to take care of all of that stuff now. Now there are certain restrictions like the starter, you can't run it straight through this, so we will still have a starter relay on the car, but absolutely everything else is going to be controlled straight through this, and that is just a super cool and powerful thing. It simplifies things, it adds a lot of flexibility. You know, if we want to replace a circuit with something else or change the function of a circuit, this gets handled by that now. We don't have to add or subtract wires from the car. We can go into the program and redefine the circuit electronically with our laptop. We don't have to go and make any physical changes on the car, which is super powerful and super cool. Now, this particular system in front of me is the AIM PDM system. It's their AIM PDM 32, their corresponding 6-inch PDM dash, and then a 12-button CAN keypad from Blink Marine that's pre-programmed to all work together. This is a kit from Bimmer World, but you can get it pretty much anywhere. And there's a ton of different brands that make PDMs. It's not like AIM's the only one, but we chose this particular system because of its integration capability. Now, we've run AIM products on the car before. Typically, we'd run a AIM Solo 2DL to do data logging, and then we would feed that into a Smarty Cam, which combines camera footage with the data, so it overlays it, and it's super easy to use, and we love it. And this pretty much gives us all of that capability, but also the functionality of the PDM, which is awesome to us. It simplifies everything. We don't have to daisy chain a bunch of systems together. This covers pretty much everything. And so the way it works is the dash will tie into the PDM via the CAN bus network, and also this ties into our ECU via the CAN bus network. The ECU we haven't talked about yet, but they are compatible. And this will also work with Holley stuff too. So the ECU will feed data to the PDM and dash, so you can use inputs and outputs from the PDM to communicate with the ECU and trigger things that way. Obviously, like I alluded to earlier, we can run all of the sensors in the car into the PDM and then have that trigger inputs and outputs. And then we can also have everything feed to the dash, and the dash has an integrated data logger and lap timer. So now we don't have to run an external data logger or lap timer anymore. It's all integrated in the dash in the car, which is super cool. It simplifies our system. It gives us a little more flexibility and control, and it's really everything that we were looking for. Now, as far as how we're going to specifically use the PDM in this car, we have some things defined and we know what we're going to do. On this keypad here, we'll probably have things like the turn signals, like a push to start button, like headlights, things like that. Basically, your typical controls that you'd have on the dash. And then we might add some special functions that we'll get into, but you really won't necessarily see the full benefit of this until the car is actually up and running and you can see that flexibility of how you can change the design, change functionality, all that stuff. You know, for example, if we want to have turn signals, typically you'd have a flasher that you'd wire to be a mechanical system, electromechanical rather. But with this, we would just have power going to the lights, and then in the program we can define if this button's hit, intermittently give power, and you can define your flash, you can define how long, how fast. You know, that's just one small example of what you can do with this technology, and it's super, super cool. You know, we could have it tied into other functions. So like, I don't know, if you want to have your headlights flash for someone in front of you in track if they're going too slow, or if you have a pit limiter on, you want it to flash. You can do, kind of cool things that are more, I guess, aesthetics, but you can also get into a lot of functionality with this. And you'll see this as the car comes together and how we actually start integrating it. I don't want to talk about everything yet because some of the things we're going to do with this relate to things we haven't talked about yet, so I don't want to spoil the surprise just yet. But it's really hard for me to express the importance of this system. On its face value, yeah, replacing the relays and fuses is nice, but it's really, once we start programming this and install it, you'll see the benefits of, we can go in and define fault codes and things like that too, which is also another important feature of a PDM. So instead of a fuse or a relay blowing, then we can go in and say, hey, if it is overcurrent for this period of time, shut the circuit down, but then, try it 2 or 3 more times. Maybe there's a weird one-off thing that happened, or maybe there is a genuine problem. So if you're out on track in the car, well, if a fuse blows because some weird one-off thing happened, well, you're done and you have to come back in and then figure it out. If it happens on this, maybe it'll cut out for a split second and then it'll re-engage the circuit, which is a super cool thing and it's convenient. We can plug into this so we can see all the voltages, currents on all the circuits in real time, so you can kind of diagnose if pumps are starting to die, maybe you're having a short circuit somewhere, maybe you have a weird gremlin. Well, it's a lot easier to track down. You can just plug into a laptop and see all of the electronic data for literally every single circuit, which makes things easier. You don't want to lose time on track when you're out at a racing event, especially to an electrical problem. Those are super frustrating to diagnose and figure out, and so this makes that a lot easier. So we think this is another awesome upgrade. It's not as cool or as flashy as the dual clutch or some of the other changes we're going to be announcing, but the functionality and the ease of use of something like this is absolutely incredible. The fact that we can go in and define circuits and change them later on is super cool. This car's developed a lot over the time that it's been on YouTube, and especially in the time I've owned it. And we're always tinkering with it, changing things. And so it's nice that in the future, if we want to change functionality, whether it's adding a new feature, repurposing a circuit, or even changing logic and relationships between circuits, we can do that all electronically. We don't have to rip the car out, run new wiring, change circuits, things like that, unpin. So it just makes our life a lot easier for future use of the car, since we know that things will change in the future. We're really never done messing around with this car, and that makes that a lot easier. And so the PDM itself is a huge upgrade, but also the fact that we can integrate our data logging and everything like that is just kind of the cherry on top. So we're really excited to get the system in. We'll cover the install as we're installing the new ECU, doing all this stuff. Just like the DCT, this was a change we didn't originally plan to do. I wanted to do a PDM in the car eventually, but we just kind of had the revelation of, if the car is already gutted and ripped apart, well, we might as well just rewire it and integrate this. So yeah, we're really excited about this change. It's the tip of the iceberg of what this can do. Like I said, you guys will really see the benefit of this and why this is such a cool thing once we actually have it in the car and can start programming and showing what this can do. But I just wanted to give you guys a little introduction. We're not the first people to install this. These have grown in a lot of popularity over the last 5 years, but they're not as popular as I think they should be, because this is pretty game-changing for people who are building race cars or even custom project cars with a lot of weird functions or unique features that aren't typically seen on cars. So if you're building something pretty wild, or even if it's a pretty well-equipped street car, I strongly encourage you to come check this out and see what it can do for your project. I'm not sponsored by AIM or anything. I wish they provided this to me, but they didn't. I think it's really cool technology, and when I see that there's value in technology like this, I think it's really important to spread the word and tell people about it, because not a lot of people in the muscle car world know about this stuff, and I think it can be of benefit to a lot of people. So that's all we got for you guys in this one. We're really excited to do this install. Just yet another change that we're making to the car. The car is going to look very different once it hits the track in 2024, and we're excited to take you guys along for the ride. So I'll see you in the next one.